Buonasera. I'm going to speak my own language. Siamo questa sera al MAXXI, ma siamo allo stesso tempo anche alla British School, all'Accademia inglese che c'è a Valle Giulia, perché questo è un evento prodotto da Marina Engel per l'Accademia inglese ed è un evento che rientra in una serie importante e ambiziosa, come molti hanno rimproverato a Marina, che si chiama Meeting Architecture, che è, la cito direttamente, una ricerca di testimonianze su quella che è la natura collaborativa del processo creativo, no? Quindi architetti, filmmakers, scrittori, musicisti che raccontano la loro collaborazione. Questa è la serie che ha visto già conferenze importanti, Amos Guitai, Rainer De Graaf, mi sembra, insomma, una serie che dura più di un anno, credo, e che sta portando anche a Roma, anche da noi, un vento di discussione molto interessante. Questa sera la cosa è particolarmente appropriata perché la coppia di discussant che abbiamo questa sera sono due fratelli, David e Peter ADJAYE, che sono un architetto e un compositore, che hanno, come dire, cominciato ognuno per conto loro una carriera professionale, chi come architetto, professionale ed artisti, diciamo, David come architetto e Peter come musicista, compositore, DJ, fabbricatore di musica, così come si è oggi, e che però hanno scoperto invece piano piano il piacere di collaborare, il piacere di legare, è il sogno di tutti noi, no? Il sogno di tutti gli architetti è trovare la formula magica per capire perché l'architettura è musica e perché la musica è architettura. Loro un po' questa formula l'hanno trovata, o comunque conducono esperimenti proprio intorno a questa pietra filosofale, diciamo, del rapporto tra l'architettura e una sua arte molto sorella che è la musica. David ADJAYE è un architetto importante che io ho conosciuto quando abbiamo fatto una mostra insieme, quando abbiamo fatto una mostra su di lui, sempre collaborando con Marina, alla Casa dell'Architettura a Roma nel 2009. Il suo lavoro parte un po' dalla sua identità, dalla sua storia di architetto che è nato in Africa e poi si è laureato a Londra, ha lavorato a Londra, che tiene dentro questa potente forza di memoria della natura, degli spazi, e che ha investigato attraverso molte installazioni di carattere, diciamo, artistico. Io mi ricordo alla Casa dell'Architettura spingere pietre che pesavano più di 1000 kg per organizzare il display della sua mostra. Poi mano a mano è diventato un architetto importante, ha costruito delle case a Londra, ha costruito dei negozi e adesso lavora in tutto il mondo, sta costruendo un museo molto importante a Washington, un altro a Denver, e ha fatto poi alcuni progetti specifici che sono quelli che ci racconterà stasera nel rapporto con la musica. Peter l'avete un po' percepito, è un compositore, produce musica, lavora sulla musica e da un certo punto della sua esperienza ha cominciato a capire che l'architettura poteva essere un interlocutore diretto, importante per la musica, e che si potesse fare, e c'è tutta una storia lunga, credo, nella musica contemporanea di questo, ma della musica non più solo site specific, ma addirittura project specific, I would say. Quello che quindi ascolteremo stasera sarà il racconto di questa collaborazione. La osserveremo attraverso 3 progetti importanti. Loro hanno fatto molti progetti insieme, progetti che poi hanno avuto anche influenza su dischi di Peter, sono stati poi pubblicati su dischi che raccontano proprio questa collaborazione musica e architettura. Però stasera parleranno essenzialmente di 3 progetti. Uno è un memorial dedicato a Stephen Lawrence, un ragazzo che è stato ucciso, che è un centro culturale e che è un progetto nato come progetto e sul quale poi Peter ha elaborato una musica. Parleremo poi invece di un progetto elaborato decisamente insieme fin dall'inizio, che è il progetto per uno spazio nella Casa dei Nobel a Oslo, no? Su cui hanno elaborato un progetto insieme. E il terzo invece, andando sempre un po' a marcia indietro, è un'installazione fatta, che è una specie di percorso complesso disegnata da David ADJAYE, che si chiama Asymmetric Chamber, che ha appunto al suo interno questa narrazione musicale. Le musiche di Peter si associano sempre con dei video, no? Quindi sarà in qualche modo una multimedia experience, perché si tratterà non solo di ascoltare la musica, ma anche di vedere come la musica attraverso il progetto video costruisce un rapporto ancora più stretto con l'architettura. Io credo di aver parlato troppo, passo molto volentieri la parola a David ADJAYE, che introdurrà di volta in progetti, e poi Peter vi racconterà come funziona e come si elabora la sua musica in questo quadro. Grazie.
Thank you. Marina asked us to come and do this talk. What this all stems from is not from a theoretical position about the relationship between music and architecture, but really a dialogue. It's really about a dialogue, and to really explore just different ways in which human beings express themselves. Music has been fundamental for both of us. In fact, the four brothers, there are four of us, three in professions, one who's disabled. But anyway, music has been incredibly important for us through our family, parents, the music that we kind of heard around the world when we were traveling, but also just our own personal sort of trajectories into music as we became sort of mature people. And in a way, I sort of fundamentally believe that that has had a profound impact on the way in which we look and see form and geometry and make relationships. So in a way, that the test was, or the discussion with my brother was to just see if different representations could make some kind of relationship. And I'm not sure if it does. And I think it'd be interesting to see if you think so or not. But it was really to just put it out there and to see, without briefing each other, I would do something, and then I would see how he would react. So in a way, if an architect's expression is the cartography of the operation, and then hopefully gets built, then the built spatial experience, Peter's is the kind of the mathematics of putting it together as a score, and then bringing musicians together and making this, this vibration that we then enjoy. And so this kind of dialogue has been very interesting. We chose the three projects because in a way they showed three different ways in which we've looked at the idea of the commission, which was mentioned. I'm going to go backwards, but essentially the last project that I'll show is really the first one that we ever did together, and it really was the one where the notion of bringing music centrally to an experience of architecture was sort of made, the genesis of the whole thing. Second was when, out of that experiment, a very specific architectural problem occurred in a project that we were doing where we needed a specific response, and it seemed like an acoustic response was the way to develop the engagement. And so that became the second piece of work. And then the third really is a project which is very dear to me, which is the Stephen Lawrence Center, which is really this very ambiguous project, which is a piece of architecture, but it's really a moment where a piece of architecture is a sort of social monument, a marker. And so it has a program in it. It's an education center, but really that's not its fundamental base. It's really this moment where a piece of architecture is not just acting as a kind of sculptural monument, but as a kind of a definer of a certain moment in the history of the sort of beginning of the 21st century in Britain. And Peter, came into that to react to that, and that seemed like a very interesting way. So one is really about this reflection, one is about a kind of a reaction, the other one is a kind of dialogue. So those are the three things.
Volevo chiedere se posso non tradurre, cioè se possiamo andare avanti con l'inglese, che mi sembra più bello, più fluido. La cosa più importante che ha detto mi sembra questa che non si tratta la loro collaborazione non è il frutto di una riflessione teorica sul rapporto tra architettura e musica, ma è proprio il frutto di un dialogo che esplora diverse modalità di relazione. Lui fa una cosa, fa un disegno e lascia che lui reagisca, quindi è più dialogica, più istintiva, e nei 3 progetti vedete 3 modi diversi di reagire, quello più progettato, concettuale, la riflessione sull'architettura, e quello poi più istintivo, più acustico, no? A un certo punto. Prego.
I'm going to quickly go through the projects. The way we're structuring is I'll go through the projects. Peter will then, I'll go through the project, Peter will react. We'll talk about how he's come up with the music. There'll be a piece of music played, and then we'll go on to the next one. So we're sort of splitting them again, so each thing is set up that way. The first project, which I said is the last one, is the monument to this wonderful, this kind of tragic, interesting story. A young man called Stephen Lawrence who was tragically murdered in a racist attack. But that happens, that's not really the issue, but what it did was that it brought a question to the heart of the British police force about the nature of racial profiling in London. And it really forced the police to eventually admit that there was racism in the police force towards people of color, and that they needed to be much more careful about this issue. So this young boy who was 18, who lost his life, created this momentum which changed the energy and the agency in London around this thing, and all over the country. So it's a very symbolic thing. The family, as a result, made a trust, and really the architecture is the place for the trust. Stephen wanted to be an architect, so he talked about wanting to do architecture. So there's this kind of very interesting relationship that sort of occurs with this boy that wanted to do architecture, and then there was a competition, and then I won the competition and wanted to reflect on that. Can we turn down the lights a bit more? Is this slide's going to be okay? Is it possible somebody to turn down the lights? Is it possible to turn the lights down?
I think they will have problems with the filming, but I mean.
Oh, I see. Because can you? All right.
Can you see? I think can you see video? Si vede?
It's okay.
Si vede, sì.
Everything's okay. All right. Apparently we're being filmed. I'll keep my mouth shut. This is Stephen here and his mother, and the family and the kind of issues. So it's really something. I mean, this woman has moved from being a school teacher to now she's a dame in the House of Lords, a baroness rather, in the House of Lords, and representing issues of diversity in education. So a very extraordinary kind of trajectory of events, and a lot of artists and characters kind of came around the issue. The project is in South London, where you have a mix of Victorian architecture relationships to the riverfront, markets and streets, and very beautiful sort of ornamental gardens that are, sort of break up the suburbs of this place. And the building essentially sits at this moment between a kind of a historic fabric edge and the railway and a kind of a stream just here. It really, it sits in that park and replaces an old pumping station which was vandalized and burnt down. What we developed really comes out of a lot of technical issues, but essentially this was the old pumping station for the whole community. Essentially there were so many pipes underneath there, we could only kind of make a piece of architecture in this area. So I decided to make 2 forms, 2 triangles, and to base the whole idea of the project on this divisions of triangles and the way in which you divide, and then so you go from the triangle to orthogonal throughout the plan. So, and in a way, the triangle is fascinating to me because it's about this way in which the triangle makes spatial perspective all the time, in a way more than a sort of 90-degree geometry, a sort of more plutonic geometry, a sort of the triangle is always in perspective, always causing this orientation. So this became very interesting to me. This idea of the divisions of triangles was what this project was about, and this idea of breaking down things sort of played right through the project, through to its facades and the way it's made. So essentially, the triangle makes a kind of opening that is a gesture, and then a kind of facade to a park. It's connected by a bridge. Am I supposed to be stopping for somebody to translate? No. It's easy? Are we okay? Good. I just suddenly realized. Okay, so programmatically the building becomes 2 things. This is about music and creativity, which is elevated in the air, and this is about study and sort of learning, sort of more sort of traditional learning systems. The building has this narrative where you come in, there's an emphatic lobby, which is a kind of tribute to him. It faces south, and I'll talk about that in a second. Specifically, it's sort of angled so that it's from about 1 o'clock, this area is illuminated in afternoon light. And then it has this sort of loggia, sort of balcony, belvedere, roof terrace, which overlooks the kind of context at the end. In all the work, there's always a kind of a narrative about how you see the city and how you engage with the environment. And I think that's probably a constant that's always occurring in my work. So this idea of the kind of division of the triangle and the sort of the orthogonal sort of playing through is this kind of system that organizes the geometry of the plan and the relationship of it. I don't want to go into detail, but it's really very simple. It's very cellular, and then it's about these spaces with these lens lights, and then the roof up above. Just to give you a sense of the volume, so there's a major volume, and then there's this elevated pavilion. They can be separately accessed and then connected. The architecture that's around it, some of the housing, and then the traditional stuff that's above it. So that's that Belvedere moment. This is the entrance here. The skin of the building, considering the program is so complex, is basically clad in one system, which is a sort of expanded metal system, which basically is only articulated at key program areas, a very specific window to the view, the cut of the balcony, the entrance facade. And the entrance really is a work of art by another person that I collaborate with a lot, Chris Ofili. He's a very a contemporary artist, a painter, sculptor, also at the Royal College with me, and somebody who I've been collaborating with for many years. And this is probably his largest work, public artwork. And we brought him in to basically articulate this foyer, which is the entrance and the sort of, in a way, the indirect memorial to Stephen. The project is in the trees, so this idea of the kind of fragmentation and fractalizing of matter is very important in this form. It's a form, but it's solid, but also it dissolves as you move around it. It changes its nature, and that was something that was very important to me, that we made something that was not about a static image, but something that could be more flexible. The pavilion that's over and above it, and then the glass screen that you come into. The chambers inside, you realize that the whole thing is a kind of structure that's basically creating the spaces, and then it's clad in the mesh as a rain screen. This is that moment in the afternoon when the light comes in, and essentially the screen is a drawing by Chris Ofili, inspired by the triangles and inspired by the water, which is also another kind of thing that we were talking about, whereby the sunlight of the afternoon strikes through the drawing and bathes this red chamber with this dancing forms. It's a sort of drawing that comes alive, and in a way for us, that moment is the kind of the reflective moment of kind of creating this very emphatic, full-scale volume. And this space is where students gather, because it's an afternoon program space, it's where students gather to do their after-school curriculum, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a kind of powerful space for us, and one that we wanted to create the relationship to Stephen without necessarily emphatically just putting a sculpture of him in there. We wanted it to somehow be about this way in which one is mediating the world and talking about geography, talking about culture, talking about place, talking about form. This is that moment when you penetrate that screen. So from the outside, it's really reflective because it's made out of a silver mirror. The drawing is a silver mirror, so it really is quite reflective of the landscape. And then obviously the other view that you saw. And then from the inside, the drawing, which is these fractalizing triangles, sort of grow and shrink. It's also backlit at night so that you get a glow to it. So just details of how that form was made, and then its relationship to the water and seeing it from the rear, and then the pavilion at the rooftop, which is the one that gives you the view to Canary Wharf and the Docklands. And it's seen as a place where after, the canteen and stuff is here, so that actually you always, break out into this space with this canopy. So Peter will just go through his response to that. So really, in a way, this was not something where he was asked to directly do a piece of music. It was more his response to just the building and the architecture.
Yes, as David was saying, we're presenting 3 projects. The Stephen Lawrence Center is the first one. And they were chosen specifically because they involved 3 very specifically different processes. And as David just alighted to, this particular project, I don't even have visuals in my way to show you, which the other projects are more technical. This was a very emotional response to a very emotional story about a young man that was killed. And for all the wrong reasons, the culprits weren't found, and there was a lot of corruption. And that led to a very strong, powerful statement about institutionalized racism in organizations. And that story is a story that goes through a lot of people's hearts because it's about a person's journey that you can relate to, a young person whose life was cut short, who wanted to be an architect. And David, in the continuing aspect of the way a lot of the work that we do together is quite experimental and quite unplanned in some ways, is that David made a film about this building, which is something that he just wanted to do. And it wasn't necessarily made, I'm not sure why he made the film, but he made the film. And it's about the space before, I think, anybody occupies that space. It's the kind of impression of his original idea. So when I got hold of that film, I composed a kind of soundtrack specifically to the film. So that's what we're going to play you. We're going to show you this film. Quest Ensemble have done an interpretation of that piece that I composed, and they're going to play it live with the film. The piece of music is very much in the same way David talked about a narrative. It's like the way I composed it was about a story. It's a whole beginning, middle, and end. It's got an atmosphere of melancholy that befits the story, and it is got a sort of gravity to it because of the nature of the subject. Okay, so I'm going to set that up. You switch me. Hopefully technology works when it wants to. We're in luck. Okay.
We're gonna go through all of them, and then at the end we're gonna do questions and answers about each one. So the next project is the Nobel Peace Center, and it's a commission that I won, I think, in 2002. 2002. And it was really to create, for the first time, a Nobel Peace Center, or a museum, and a new kind of museum. The Nobel Peace Center is essentially a center that, as you know, gives away awards for excellence in the sciences, etc. But this is the Peace Prize, which is about the greatest contribution to peace by any individual group that year. And it's given in December, it's given in Norway, the science prizes are given in Stockholm. And what's happened is that it's been almost 100 years, and they realize that they have so many people coming to Norway wanting to find a place, only to find out that there is no place. It's just an administration building. It's an invisible organization. But they realized that over 100 years, they had agglomerated incredible amount of data. So in a way, it's the beginning of, I think, a new kind of museum that we're now sort of witnessing the birth of. These museums which are much more about narrative, about information, and about very intangible things, about recordings, film, light effects. They're really intangibles. So if this sort of previous 300-400 years of museum sort of evolution was about the kind of edification of the object, or the sort of archival, or the kind of, the wonder carbon, the kind of the box of wonder. This is a different kind of thing where the nature of experience and the nature of storytelling is really becoming very prescient. And I think that the 21st century is really going to create more of these institutions, as we're seeing around the world, as we talk about globalization and planetary issues and all these things. It becomes important to be able to retell these stories. And so in a way, the Nobel Peace Center for us was a first prototype of this kind of institution that's coming into the world. We won the competition because we came in and said that we wanted to create a series of atmospheres rather than installations, sort of didactic installations. We wanted to create a series of atmospheres which would curate people around the building, and then create a set of narratives would be experienced within those atmospheres. This is Alfred Nobel, who's sort of memorialized in the medal, who gave his money and his will. He was basically the man who invented dynamite. So I think this, the inventor of a lot of war wanted to kind of create a scenario where his legacy wasn't just about that, but would also be about peace. This is the hall that the laureate is always given every year. It's the Oslo Town Hall, and just a collection of the different incredible laureates that have been in the world, from Wangari Maathai, who tragically passed away last year, and Mandela, to the Dalai Lama, Barack Obama, etc. This is the current director. Bente is the current director of the institution, and Geir is the chair of the board, and has been there probably the longest. This is the architecture of the town hall. It's an extraordinary brick edifice. The hall is here that the medal is given. It's an incredible piece of sort of romantic architecture, sort of just before the war. Very imposing on the skyline of Oslo. It's sort of around the fjord, this bay, and essentially there was a station opposite which was tragically bombed very heavily by the Luftwaffe in World War II, and has sat idle for a long while, and then eventually, this is the sort of station building, this is the town hall here, this is the waterfront here, sorry, this is the waterfront here, this is the old station. It had tracks going directly out, and obviously that was all bombed, and then we built this sort of back building, and this is the only bit that was left. This building really had a kind of extraordinary set of memories for the community. It's, a lot of families left the city through this, so it had this incredible sort of collective memory in the place. So when we were working, we were keen to kind of not to play a kind of host to the building, but to also bring something radically new, but to never obliterate the nature of the building, but to laminate it with new contemporary kind of scenarios. One of the ways we said we would start the kind of acknowledgement of the transformation was to start right on the outside by creating a structure that would invite people, not a sign. So we made a kind of gateway between these two buildings, a sort of bridge structure which would announce this activation of this new building, and then a series of installations inside which I'll go through. And finally, where we sort of needed Peter was in the main hall of the laureates. I kind of designed a garden, a digital garden. And this was just before the iPad came out. So now we look at these images and we think it's probably, these are pre-iPad. And we, as you know, Steve Jobs' Intel is really good, so we really didn't know that he was even inventing an iPad. So we basically concocted this with some MIT engineers. But essentially the experiences are the first one, which is the gateway, which is a map of the world as a space, not a globe. So one that you pass through. And then a map of the world as all the languages in the world, an acoustic chamber, and then a sort of a foyer entrance, a golden chamber, which is where the medal of each laureate is displayed, sort of exhibition spaces, which is where war and peace are, etc. What we call a Norwegian, the sort of forests galleries, which is where contemporary issues are discussed, and then media and lounges and education spaces, and then a sort of a cafe of peace and dialogue, which is a space that was designed with Chris Ofili, the artist that I collaborate with a lot. So in plan, this is the volume we built as the exhibition volume, a sort of simple volume in the back. These are the installations. One, this thing you pass through. One, something you listen to closely. Bookshops, back of house, the golden chamber, the exhibition space, the cafe in the end, and then up above. This is a kind of media lab for global teaching. It was basically a satellite-linked teaching room. The sort of wood gallery. This is the heart of the building, which is this garden that we first designed, which is basically the 100 laureates that have been memorialized. Each one has a stalk. It was conceived as a kind of space where each one is a stalk that has a recording of the achievements of that laureate that you don't touch. This is an iPad you don't touch. And it's funny, when we started, people were incredibly intuitive with that interaction because they saw it as a garden. They would go to it, it would react, and they would move away. And now in the iPad age, kids go up to it and they all start touching it immediately and trying to kind of make it react. So actually we're in this whole kind of moment where the technology has shifted everything, and we're actually thinking about how to shift this technology, or whether we're going to, or whether we're gonna, anyway. So I think that's a kind of humorous story. So there are these installations. So a sort of institution as a series of installations and sort of atmospheres, and the signifier of the transformation as a kind of form which announces the entry into volumes. This is one of the images of the building when we finish. The cafe spills out. This is the introduction volume. When the medal is given, there's a wonderful ceremony where the laureate walks through this and goes to open their exhibition, which sort of adds to the sort of pageantry. And this is when this object arrived, it was a kind of incredible curiosity to people, and for us was just a very powerful way of talking about this way of transforming. So you can see how it frames both ways. This is the room where the medal is given, and then the other way around. And then the chamber of sound, which is where all the languages of the world are spoken. And it's amazing how radio really communicates all the languages of the world. So we just sampled, we just sampled through all the radio stations around the world, and made this chamber with all the recordings when you came close. Entrance, golden chamber for the laureate, and the medal is always played next to it, and there's a kind of film. The sort of wooded exhibition space. The laureate chamber, which is in the heart of the building, just above that entrance. And this was the digital garden, where basically a series of LED stalks and then these plexi digital screens, which each laureate sort of displayed, is where you kind of move around. And in here, what we realized is that this was the one space where we would suddenly have, easily 30, 40 people, and then the acoustic reverberation was really problematic. We created a diffuse blue field to try and create this idea of a horizon for this landscape. But the acoustic reverberation was really tough, and we realized that we didn't want to put in lots of acoustic dampers, but what we thought we'd do is to create a noise to cancel the noise. So that became the strategy. Rather than putting in lots of quilts to dampen it, why don't we try the other way around? And so that's when Peter was asked to come into this project and to construct a soundscape that would create a sort of counter to reverberation, but also create an atmosphere for the kind of the space. When you come up to each screen, it goes yellow and tells you the information, and when you go away, it goes back to blue. But it's interesting, this space has been there for almost 10 years, and people still go in there, and they have this very sort of emphatic experience with this space. We've been sort of interested in tracking how this emotion has happened, and people really go in there in a kind of very reflective way. And what we were trying to do was to move away from this idea of portrait heads on the wall, which is so kind of, you know, in a way, too much about the us and them. We wanted it to be much more a gaze downwards, and a kind of this idea of the landscape as a way to reflect seemed like a much more beautiful action. Then the Chamber of Peace, just quickly telling you, this is a drawing that Chris made of all the cities in the world interconnected. So he wanted to talk about the idea of the prize being an interconnected system. And he got all the 10 art school students to paint this as a kind of work for the school. So it's kind of this extraordinary drawing that was made for the cafe space. Great. Peter, over to you. Sorry?
Translation.
Allora farò una traduzione molto concisa. Partiamo dalla prima opera, Stephen Lawrence. Sì, è quest'opera dedicata a questo ragazzo che studiava architettura ed è stato ucciso per motivi a sfondo razziale, in un'aggressione a sfondo razziale. E quindi quest'opera è importante perché è a metà tra un centro appunto di sostegno per le persone che vogliono continuare a studiare architettura, magari di etnia che appartengono a una minoranza, però è anche un centro per ricordare questo evento che è stato molto importante nella storia di Londra, perché ha rivelato, ha messo alla luce dei problemi a sfondo razziale, appunto. E la seconda opera che abbiamo visto è il Nobel Peace Center. È un monumento che appunto presta omaggio ai premi Nobel, perché come sapete ci sono i premi Nobel, ogni anno vengono celebrati a dicembre a Oslo, e ci si è reso conto che la gente arrivava, i turisti desideravano toccare con mano proprio questa storia del paese, per cui è stato rivitalizzato questo centro, ed è un vero e proprio museo. Però a differenza dell'idea classica di un museo, questo non si basa tanto sugli oggetti veri e propri, ma è una fonte di informazioni, fonti anche radiofoniche, ci sono anche dei film, quindi è un museo che presenta queste informazioni intangibili. E questa forse è una realtà che si svilupperà sempre di più con la globalizzazione, quindi questa necessità di avere anche musei dove è importante la narrativa, dove tu sei guidato all'interno di una storia. Quest'opera in questione noi ce la siamo aggiudicata all'interno di un appalto, perché noi abbiamo proposto di voler creare un'atmosfera. Non volevamo creare installazioni, non volevamo creare questo museo dove all'interno c'erano le classiche fotografie dei volti, dei premi Nobel, ma volevamo appunto creare questa atmosfera dove le persone venivano guidate all'interno della costruzione. Poi dopo abbiamo visto anche alcune delle sale che sono presenti in questo museo, come ad esempio il campo. Nominerò solo questo per non dilungarmi troppo. Il campo dei premi Nobel sarebbe questa sorta di giardino dove le persone si trovano davanti delle bacchette di plexiglass con sopra questo schermo che racconta la storia di ogni premio Nobel, e non occorre neanche toccarlo questo schermo, perché si attiva grazie alla prossimità, ovvero quando una persona ci si avvicina. E questa è una stanza che riscuote parecchio successo. Poi ne abbiamo viste altre, la Camera Dorata, dove vengono proiettate delle immagini, e via discorrendo.
Sì, voleva Aggiungo solo che lui ha a un certo punto questo tipo di media museum creava una specie di rumore di fondo, e allora lui ha pensato di sopraffare il rumore con un rumore nuovo, che poi è stato invece il progetto sul suono che ha elaborato col fratello.
Thank you. A very special project. 2004, I think, 10 years, 2014. And at the time, the technology that Dave and his team were using was really cutting edge. And certainly, a big source of that for Nobel Field, the area where I worked on, was the LEDs, which now get used so much in a lot of art and installations, but this was 10 years ago. And like David said, the iPad wasn't around 10 years ago. You probably can't imagine that. It seems so part of our normal lives already, how technology just makes everything in the past seem invisible. But what was so interesting about this project is David said to me, you've got to do a sound installation that will last for 10 years at least. So it's interesting that it's 10 years now, and it's interesting that he's talking about how the technology kind of needs to move on. And 10 years is a very long time, I remember at that time, and now it seems to have gone very quickly. But that was a challenge. That was the biggest challenge I've had in a long time, to compose something that would have that resonance and be relevant for 10 years.
Can I say that they're still using that soundtrack? There's still, it lasted 10 years, FYI.
Job done. I definitely want to do the remake. But it was such a special project. We got to go to the opening of the 100th winner, which was an amazing woman called Wangari Maathai, who was the first African woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize. An incredible woman who is involved in this movement called the Green Belt Movement, all about sustainability and planting back into her home country of Kenya. And she unfortunately died 2 years ago. And she was a doctor of physics, as well as this humanitarian and a world-class leader, incredible person. I was so moved to meet this woman. And she came into the Nobel field. I met her in the field, this space that David had created, this sort of indoor electronic garden, forest garden space. And she was so at home in this space. She said to me, you know, being in this space reminds me of being in my village. And the sounds as well coming through made me feel like the sounds a stream makes coming through my village. And I was on my knees. That was, you know, that was. It doesn't get any better than that, really. And it's about feelings, and it's about emotions, and that's certainly what music is about with myself. But I also know that that's exactly what David's about. And I guess that's not something that a lot of architects allure to, but it's something which his work, which is very artistic for me, is about emotions and sensibility, and about the personal individual journey. And allowing music to be in there as well gives an interpretation of individuality, because we all interpret music in a different way. And it brings the building alive. And the building, as David knows, without a sound, without movement, is not what he envisaged. When he makes the buildings, he envisages the people in that space. It's purpose-built for, not just as an icon, just to sit there, but it's for the use of and to create that dialogue. And this space that he created really was very special. I mean, it's quite complicated, the whole thing. The 100 screens with sensors, where if you approach the sensor, not only would the sound change, the screen information would change with information about the laureate. And the colors in the space would change to do with the year they won, to do if they were a pair that won, or if they came from a corporation. It was all really intricately linked to the information. So the colors of the LEDs in the space were linked to different information that was being projected on those screens at a particular time. The technology really was, well, very, very advanced. And it kind of still is, as it's still so useful. And I came in as a sound man, and obviously we worked with the guys who built the software and the hardware, the firm from America. Small, yeah, small design, small. David Small, amazing, phenomenal. And just going through that whole process of 100 layers, I basically created 100 different pieces of music that all interacted with each other, and then I stripped them all down to the individual instrumentations so they could be sporadically put together in any combination. So I never knew what it would ever sound like. Total experiment. But we stimulated it. We did simulate it in London. We got a couple of pods, we got a couple of sensors, we put a few together, we reacted it. It was a reaction, it was like a chemical reaction. And it was like, oh, that works. It worked straight away. Because the intent, the emotion, the reasoning was there. And because I understood completely what David was trying to do. Intrinsically, I can't even explain to you why I understood what David was trying to do. But I do, because that's the connection we have. And that's the interesting thing here between brothers who are just, I think, thinking in the very similar lines, but in different fields. But at the same time, crossing fields. I'm a very visual person. David's a very auditory person. So that's to confuse you. Because I'm very visual, and when I see a film or I get a piece of textured material that he gave me for one of the projects, I'm instantly in sound, but from the visual. And David is very, activated by sound, and he takes him to different planes, and the visuals take me to different planes. Also, being a vinyl addict, I remember my albums by the front cover, not by the name. I visualize it. So I'm totally into the visuals and the space. I want to just quote something about sound by a person called Julia Schultz-Donober. Sound is invisible, but has the power to change the character of the space we occupy. Another quote, Brandon Labella. Sound exists as a phenomenal presence involved in and determining the shape of the world. It partially defines our perceptual, emotional, spiritual, psychological spaces and contributes to our understanding of ourselves, our environment, and our relationship to each other. It's not a coincidence that David uses sound. A space, as my voice resonates in this space, is all about the interaction of sound and space. And if that space resonates in a way that is uncomfortable, like David mentioned in terms of issues about acoustics, it can be uncomfortable and you won't want to be in that space anymore. So the dimensions and proportions of a space contributes to the reverb of that space and the feeling in that space. So space and sound are so linked. They're very powerful. I guess the technical side, I'm not going to get too much more into that because we used, 6 computers, we had 6 bays, we had 18 channels of sound, 2 subwoofers, 18 sets of speakers in that space, but it was all very background, all very subtle, and just enveloped you. A bit like what we're trying to do today here with having a speaker there, having a speaker there, having a speaker there. Trying to actually make you be in the sound, which is really how it should be, because sound is all around you. So, without overdoing it, I'm going to now talk about how Quest Ensemble and myself worked on this. So I basically cheated on this one, because the installation is an installation, but this is a performance to this film. So that is not exactly what it was intended for, but as continuing the way we think, experiment, expand, go out your comfort zone, expand. I've worked with Quest Ensemble on this particular piece in a different way. So the first piece was more composed and then interpreted. This piece is a bit more improvisational and very electronic. So I'm kind of pushing out a lot of electronic sounds from here, and Quest Ensemble are adding improvisational qualities based on their reactions to the film. Okay? So it's not the process of what the installation, but you will hear the sounds of the installation because they are in the electronic sounds. Okay. Yes.
Come dicevamo, c'era questa necessità all'interno di questa stanza di coprire il rumore che veniva creato, per cui David ha chiesto a Peter di creare questo che lui ha chiamato soundscape, questa musica di sottofondo che copriva tutto il resto. E era complicato questa sfida perché comunque la tecnologia usata a quell'epoca, 10 anni fa, era avanzata, era molto avanzata, e a me era stato detto di creare una melodia, un sottofondo che potesse durare altri 10 anni, e so che è ancora lì. Ho avuto la conferma del successo di del fatto che questo progetto fosse riuscito quando la prima donna africana a essere insignita del premio Nobel, che è venuta a mancare 2 anni fa, si è complimentata per il mio lavoro dicendomi che le dava proprio la sensazione di essere tornata nel villaggio da cui proveniva, aveva le ricordava molto la foresta, le sue origini, per cui questo è stato il più grande complimento che io possa aver ricevuto. E mi sono trovato bene a collaborare con mio fratello perché lui immagina le persone all'interno di uno spazio quando crea le sue opere, e non immagina questi spazi senza la musica. Per cui si tratta solo di creare un dialogo tra queste due discipline. Era molto complicato perché la tecnologia di David Small era molto avanzata, come abbiamo detto, e io ho creato 100 basi diverse che potessero interagire tra loro, quindi alla fine le combinazioni tra queste potevano essere infinite. Abbiamo creato delle simulazioni a Londra perché c'erano molte variabili in gioco, e l'intenzione era quella di creare appunto un percorso emotivo all'interno di questa stanza, e ci siamo riusciti. Non so in che modo, ma io e mio fratello la pensiamo allo stesso modo. Mettiamo in campo la nostra arte all'interno di discipline diverse, però abbiamo entrambi questa caratteristica. Io sono molto visivo, tant'è vero che ricordo i miei album dalla copertina che avevano, non dai titoli, mentre mio fratello si fa attivare, per così dire, dal suono. E il suono, ha letto delle citazioni, il suono è qualcosa di invisibile, ma che può cambiare le caratteristiche di uno spazio. Il suono definisce la nostra percezione spirituale, anche psicologica dello spazio, e ci permette di capire noi stessi e come ci rapportiamo agli altri. E lo spazio è quindi l'interazione tra il suono e lo spazio stesso. E a volte questa interazione può rivelarsi negativa, come è successo all'inizio in questa stanza del campo dei Nobel, può creare delle combinazioni negative, e quindi questo ci dimostra che il suono influenza la nostra percezione dello spazio. Ora eseguiremo la melodia che ho composto. Vi prego però di tenere presente che questa era una melodia composta per uno spazio specifico, e noi adesso dovremo adattare la nostra percezione al fatto che la stiamo ascoltando in un determinato ambiente e vedendo un video allo stesso tempo.
Last project. The asymmetric chamber. And this is where it sort of all started. The chamber really was conceived, it was really a request by an institution to show my work when I started my career. And I hadn't actually built anything yet. It was actually a time when I just was still, I'd won about, quite a few competitions, and I'd started to kind of work in the public realm. And I kind of had this very deep suspicion of making a series of drawings about how good things were going to be, or how these works were going to be. So I resisted, and we had a lot of discussion, and in the end I said, rather than making an exhibition of all the things that I'm working on, I wanted to make a spatial effect for people. So the show, my first show, was really just to construct, to make my first construction that the public could engage in, and that was my exhibition. So in a way, I wanted to kind of make that, turn the emphasis from being the curiosity of what the projects were to just experiencing something. And so that's where it started. The project for me was very, very simple. So this is the commissioning gentleman, Graham Russell, was then the kind of director who made this happen. And the project really is all in this drawings, there's 2 drawings, and it really was about repetition and division and modulation. So this idea of 2/3, 1/3, it's all about, it's just really how many ways can you divide something that looks incredibly mundane into a series of systems. And the project really is about this idea of the, when is the moment of architecture in a space? The moment when I control and bend you through a form. So the bend was really the architecture, and the experience of what seems like a generic, boring system would be activated by the way in which the modularity and the kind of deformations in the system would create the encounter. The building it was just basically about stacking modules of timber together to create this solid field, and then opening up parts of that stacking to create these luminous moments, and then opaque moments, and then luminous moments again. So this is the form just before it was kind of installed, but this is the idea of the kind of long chamber of timber that's just compacted together. And then when you are inside it, you get the field of the first moment, and then you have the translucence of the end, and this way this sort of neutral entry. And then you have the second chamber, which is the expanded field, which basically has 2 light lines of the color spectrum of lights on either side, and a sort of GRP sheets which create the translucency between the 2 corridors. So GRP sort of sheet on either end, and sort of that sort of emphatic center between the 2 color spectrums. And then finally at the end, when you leave to a sort of a bright light source against the GRP at the other end. So this idea of what is a very generic system becoming very specific and atmospheric through the encounter was the kind of whole project and the whole exhibition. And so I asked Peter to to react to it, to work with it. I think maybe we need to get started to this.
L'ultimo progetto è la Asymmetric Chamber, sarebbe la camera asimmetrica, nonché il primo progetto in realtà su cui abbiamo lavorato insieme io e Peter. Mi era stato richiesto da parte di un centro portare delle mie opere per una mostra, ma io ancora non avevo costruito niente per poter fare una cosa del genere. Più che altro volevo distaccarmi da quell'idea di mostra classica, preferivo creare un effetto, creare qualcosa che desse un effetto negli spettatori. Volevo creare un percorso da vivere, non solo un'occasione per vedere una serie di opere. Per cui mi sono chiesto come poter dividere uno spazio semplice all'apparenza in tutta una serie di sistemi. Quindi questa è un'opera che è fatta di ripetizione, di divisione, dove ho accumulato dei pannelli di legno per creare un effetto molto specifico. Quindi abbiamo visto all'interno delle slide come ci si muove all'interno di questa camera. Appena entrati si intravede questa luce all'orizzonte, dopodiché ci si mette nella camera centrale dove sono proiettate, partono delle luci, una luce calda e una luce fredda che si riflettono poi sul materiale della superficie. E quindi l'idea di questo progetto è come trasformare un sistema generico in qualcosa di unico e specifico, e qui è intervenuto anche Peter.
Thank you. Asymmetric Chamber, the first project me and David did, and the last project we're going to talk about today. Very inspiring, very quick, very instantaneous. The creative process. Either works or it doesn't. And it worked very quickly. I don't know why David, I don't know if he planned to have sound as the first design, but it came to a point where it was time for sound, and he gave me a drawing. Can you switch the screen? Hopefully this will work. Okay, it's not that one. Okay, so 2003, 11 years ago. And this is the drawing that David drew. He brought me in the office and he said, Peter, on the 5th of the 8th, 2003, music study for the Cube Gallery. This is it. This is it. That's it. Go away and do it. Pretty much how he does it. It's instantaneous. And I love that. I love that about architecture and about art, about trusting yourself and trusting your instinct. And there's a word there's a word chant down there, actually. But the journey, it's a journey. And that's my interpretation. I didn't even ask him what he drew. I just saw it as a journey through the spaces with the drama and the intrigue of the personal journey from the pitter-patter starts, getting more and more dramatic, and then dropping you into a huge well of bass and drums and energy and frequency. And then in the central space, because actually the asymmetric chamber, the first chamber, the pitter-patter, if you like, is an inclined, rising elevation. It's not flat, so you feel like you're going somewhere. That's what he was doing. And then in the middle, it's completely in the center space, which is double the space. It's completely level. You kind of reach somewhere. It's energy and this amplitude. And then the last space, the exit, with the triangle that David showed you, is very important because it's directional, is elevated downwards. So you're kind of walking down and out. So you enter in one end of a box and you come out of another end of a box. And in that space, in that time, which I believe David does, and I believe I'm into, you create a virtual reality. You create a fantasy world. And for me, maybe that's what architecture and music is really about. It's about creating virtual worlds of your imagination. And this allowed us to do that enormously. And I enjoyed it so much. I think I got a drawing, I got that drawing, I got the architectural drawings, and I got a piece of wood that he was going to use. With that, I went to my studio, and the next day I came back and said, here it is, here's the composition. And he said, yeah, that's it. And then I had to sort of, it was an epilogue. It was a 3-minute version of what could be a sound installation. So I then had to extrapolate it, and I wanted it to last for an hour so that you could have a really a long experience in the space. And I actually, strangely enough, made four sections, 4 parts, which sounds weird because it's 3 chambers, but I have to stick by it. The middle chamber is double the space. So for me, it's 4 equal sections, which is, again, we do relate to dimensions in music and architecture. So that piece of music, we're gonna perform it. The amazing Quest Ensemble are gonna perform it with me, and it's our slightly heavier piece because of the energy in the middle. Oh, okay, before we play. And yeah. Yeah, okay. Translate.
Asymmetric Chamber è stato qualcosa di molto stimolante, veloce, istantaneo e ha funzionato subito. Non so se mio fratello aveva in mente di inserire la musica all'interno di quest'opera, però ha funzionato. Lui all'inizio mi aveva dato un disegnino, l'abbiamo visto sullo schermo, un disegnino molto, molto approssimativo, per così dire, stiamo parlando del 2003, però da quel disegnino io ho capito qualcosa istantaneamente, ho capito che stavamo parlando di un viaggio, di un percorso all'interno dello spazio, con molto dramma, molto intrigo, molta curiosità, e un percorso all'interno della quale la persona poteva cambiare, arrivava all'apice della drammaticità e poi veniva abbandonata a un nuovo mondo. E una caratteristica particolare che dovete sapere di quest'opera è che la prima camera è rialzata, cioè è inclinata verso l'alto, una rampa verso l'alto, dove appunto si ha la sensazione che si sta andando da qualche parte. La sala centrale è invece piana ed è il doppio dei due corridoi ai lati. La superficie è il doppio dei 2 corridoi ai lati, mentre per quanto riguarda l'uscita, quella luce all'orizzonte che abbiamo visto alla fine, la rampa è in discesa. E quindi cosa succede? In questa stanza si entra in un modo e si esce in un altro. David ha voluto creare una vera e propria realtà virtuale e forse l'architettura è proprio questo, creare un mondo virtuale della nostra immaginazione. Io avevo ricevuto questo disegnino, avevo ricevuto il materiale che avrebbe utilizzato, il legno, e ho creato in un giorno questa demo, questa colonna sonora, diciamo. Prima una versione di 3 minuti e poi ho dovuto estrapolare delle parti per fare una versione di 1 ora. E ho creato in tutto 4 parti che si sono associate e questo può sembrare strano dal momento che la stanza monta solo a 3 aree, ma questo ricordiamo che l'area centrale, la sala centrale è il doppio dello spazio dei 2 corridoi laterali, per cui questo io l'ho contato come un'ulteriore parte della colonna sonora e adesso la eseguiremo.
Thank you. As the musicians will testify to you, the parts are very asymmetric and they are in different sort of counts, if you like, using different types of, if you like, numbers. 3s, 6s, 10s, 4s. nothing is really stuck to. It changes, it throws you. It's not supposed to be a linear path. Okay, so we're going to play.
Grazie.
Questo ensemble.
Yeah. Bravissimi. Grazie.
Tara, Brita, Philippe.
Abbiamo qualche minuto se avete delle domande. If you have questions.
We talked a lot already.
Well, of course I have questions, but but I'd rather or I can do the first. No, my first question is, I mean, the difference between reacting to drawings or reacting to a physical space. No, how do you manage that? How that influences you?
I don't really see much difference between them actually. I'm an architect inside, exactly, because architects first draw 2D flat, and then they make them into 3D physical spaces. So they start from the flat and make them 3D. I think music is very similar because you can start from a score, which is essentially flat, and then the music is something more than that once it's played. You know, it becomes, you know, physical, and it goes through your body, and the frequencies affect you, whether it makes you cry or the bass makes you ill, or whatever it might be. But it's physical. Sound is physical. You know, the air of a bass sound will make your trousers flap if you're into reggae and jar shaka. You're a drummer. Well, there you go. You see, sound is physical.
Primary.
Qual è la differenza tra reagire di fronte a un disegno e reagire, quindi creare di fronte a uno spazio fisico? La risposta è: non vedo molte differenze. L'architettura, per prima cosa, anch'essa comincia da uno spazio, disegnando su un foglio di carta, e poi comincia a costruire. Secondo me la musica è la stessa cosa, comincia dalla partitura anch'essa, e poi diventa qualcosa di fisico, perché le frequenze anche della musica, il modo in cui è strutturata, ci può far piangere, ci può far divertire, quindi vedo una somiglianza in questo.
Everybody knows jar shaka.
Ma forse è più a Peter. Allora, io ho avuto l'impressione che in italiano, e poi traduciamo, che in tutti i vostri progetti di insonorizzazione ci fosse una volontà descrittiva, narrativa, come se fosse una post-produzione in cui a progetto compiuto, servendosi anche del lavoro sulle immagini, si volesse poi descrivere e raccontare un progetto. Mentre a volte negli esperimenti nell'esperienza del soundscape il suono viene generato, no? È site specific perché in qualche modo potenzia la capacità espressiva dello spazio. Allora volevo capire quanto il lavoro sul suono serva a raccontare, a descrivere un'architettura anche a chi non la può esperire, o quanto invece questi siano lavori che vanno fruiti lì nello spazio e servono semplicemente a potenziare la potenza, appunto la capacità espressiva, emozionale degli spazi.
I intrinsically believe that every object has its own sound imprint. So the sounds that were generated for the asymmetric chamber, I can never imagine any other sound for it. That's its imprint. That's it together.
I mean, for me also, definitely, the whole purpose of the project was to move away from this idea of a kind of cinematic, where you make something and then you illustrate it. It's really about kind of trying to, for me, you know, using the physical world to make form is a kind of a way of making different acoustic systems. And what I was interested in Peter doing was to see if he could make sound architecture. So in a way, it's not really about illustrating it, it's about trying to kind of show a sort of, it's almost like showing the night and day, the different nature of it in a different medium. So it's like if it could be simply, if we were a species without sight, that's the architecture. I'm sort of like that, you know, what Peter's constructing is the architecture for me. Yeah.
Io credo fermamente che ogni oggetto abbia il proprio suono. Per quanto riguarda per esempio la camera simmetrica, non potrei immaginare nessun altro suono per quell'opera. E aggiunge David che l'obiettivo del progetto in realtà era di staccarsi da quell'idea cinematica, tra virgolette, di creare qualcosa e poi illustrarla. L'obiettivo era, il desiderio più che altro, era quello di creare dei sistemi acustici differenti, una sorta di architettura del suono. L'intenzione è quella di mostrare la diversa natura della stessa disciplina, della stessa concetto.
I hope that answers your question. They're intrinsically linked.
But at the same time, at the same time, you're listening to the score that's Peter's score, but you're also listening to the fundamentals of the thing. So there could be a way in which you would play it differently, but fundamentally be the same. If that makes sense.
It does. It's a reaction to the space in many, many ways. In terms of even the sounds used for the asymmetric, it's about a texture of the very coarse wood that David was using for the asymmetric, and that kind of rough nature of it, and then sort of the dimensions are, and the asymmetric natures and the lines. So you probably would arrive at something, you know, if you're responding to all those aspects. It depends how in tune you are to the detail of what you're trying to express. And I guess I've looked at it from not just the drawing, but the materials, the light, the journey, the individualization. And the more ways you look at it, the more you get closer to marrying it together.
Sì, sono intrinsecamente legati e adesso abbiamo ascoltato la melodia di Peter, però non è solo questo, è anche l'essenza fondamentale dell'opera e perché risponde, è la dimostrazione di come Peter ha reagito a questo spazio, al materiale che veniva usato, la natura anche ruvida dell'opera, le luci, il disegno stesso, questo percorso. Quindi è una conseguenza di tutti questi fattori che potrebbero essere anche replicati in un'altra persona, si potrebbe suonare anche in modo diverso, quello che però resta la base fondamentale di quest'opera.
Grazie. Sono altre domande? Ok, Marina, grazie. Thank everybody, grazie alla BSR, grazie al MAXXI, Pedolin Margherita. Thanks especially to David and Peter ADJAYE and this wonderful group. La musica peraltro ha suonato bene, no? The acoustic was surprisingly good. So thanks everybody and I hope to see you again in the MAXXI soon. Grazie, arrivederci.